Okay, so here it is, man. You know, like living in a house with my stepmother, man. Who we lived in the basement, and she needed a facelift, man. Is what she needs down there. But anyway, that all aside, she lived in our place for free, man, for free, and all she did was add fucking bullshit to our house.
Hostage.
Yeah, that's what she did. But anyway, so my sister and I would get up. We weren't allowed. She didn't pay any bills. My grandpa paid everything, but we weren't allowed to use the dryer. We had to get up, and she's like, "You guys gotta go to school." And
had to hand wash our clothes.
We had to hand wash our clothes, and we weren't allowed to use the dryer. We had to hang our clothes up. We have to go to school. She's like, on us, we're going to school. But
in the end, our dad knew what she was doing wrong, but let her get away with it because he would actually in the mornings because she would sleep in. Every morning she'd sleep in, but my dad understood, and he'd go down there, and she was so evil that she'd actually take the wires out of the dryer so we couldn't get them. And we figured it out, so Dad would put the wires together so we could have our clothes dry to go to school that morning.
Yeah, she wouldn't let us use our own dryer in our blood home. This is an imposter coming into our shit, because I call her an imposter because it's all she's ever been, man. Meanwhile, her family can come from Ottawa and live with us for fucking 2 years and eat for free and live for free and not pay fucking rent, not pay nothing. Live in my house, live in my room, live under my roof and do whatever they fucking wanted. Meanwhile, we had to live under Linda's criteria of how to fucking live, and it's bullshit. And everyone saw how wrong it was, but no one fucking stood up for how fucking wrong it was, you know? Like, so... What were you talking about in the car? Like, how Linda made you feel? Like,
just how she just made life horrible, stomping around all the time in the house, and mornings that, you know, we get up and have to go to school, and, you know, we'd put a Walkman on. A Walkman.
No, I said that. She did the one time. She would listen. She didn't have a standing. She'd listen to a Walkman on her.
So I was being quiet so I wouldn't get in trouble, but even listening to a Walkman with headphones in my ear,
you started hearing banging, boom, 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 boom.
Came in and started a huge fight that morning, didn't
that was the day I was talking about on my rap thing. I was downstairs and I heard her fucking stomping, and I go and so I'm like, I'm gonna go check it out, and I go upstairs and she's fucking giving her shit, and I fucking went in and I'm like, what the fuck? But now I'm a little bit bigger than fucking Linda. Like, I was still a kid, but I was starting to get bigger, and she couldn't fucking boss me around as much. And I remember I came in, I was telling her to fuck off, like fucking, she's listening to a Walkman, like fuck off. And I turned around, and I remember my stepmother jumped on my back, and she's hanging on my back, like fucking I'm doing something to her when she's jumping on my. She's just wrong in every way, but. Fuck, Tammy, what was it?
The one part that upset me was, this was actually recently, a few years back, when my dad found some videos, home videos, of all of our upbringing that they had recorded, and my dad thought it would be a great idea to borrow them and take them home and watch them. I watched one and didn't want to watch anymore because I could just see how evil she was and how unhappy me and my brother were as kids. No smiles on her face, always, you know, worried about her and what she was going to say or do. That, for me, was reality as an adult of how horrible our upbringing was. I couldn't even watch those videos. And then my dad getting in trouble by Linda, actually, because she had lent them to me to watch them. Get those back from her right now, you know, just stupid shit
all
like
our stuff. And I bet you those videos, like, who knows? She probably threw them out in that big blue bin that she would rather have everything thrown out. All of our stuff. This is our family, my everything she threw out. But so let's get into the abuse that. So with Grandpa, do you remember seeing abuse that she fed to Grandpa?
Well, I'm lucky that I never... Well, the only thing I ever remember about Grandpa is him banging to try and get someone's attention and no one coming up to see him or help him.
Do you remember that, or do you remember me telling you that?
No, I remember hearing it.
Okay, because I remember him calling for her, and he would just let her fucking... He's living in her house downstairs, doing everything, and he would call for her, and she wouldn't come. I remember from myself, I was sitting beside my grandpa, I was in my granny's chair, and my grandpa's like, yeah, You want to see what I deal with every day with this woman downstairs? This is after everything I was trying to tell him this is the way she was, but he wasn't believing me because of the way that I reacted. He thought I was the bad guy and listened to her bullshit, but now he sees with his own eyes, and he felt that she was poisoning his food. He knew, so he didn't even eat her food anymore. And then he's like, watch what I deal with. Linda, can you come here? Linda. And then he started banging his cane, like, get up here, it's an emergency. And she fucking just sat there because she wanted him to die. She wanted him to die in his fucking house, living rent fucking free. Anyway, so that's that. And I don't know what Tammy was talking about that, but talk about the abuse with Dad.
Well, I always thought as a kid I was close to my dad. Linda always seemed to get in the way of that, and I could never figure out why me and my brother just could never get love from her, and why she was so bitter towards us. And for years and years I thought it had to do with maybe me resembling my mom, and she just couldn't stand that fact. But then, years later as I grew up, I kind of put it all together and realized that when she was 16, had a baby and put it up for adoption. And then 2 years later, met my dad and had to all of a sudden raise his 2 kids. So
she had a horrible
I
time
feel
from day one.
That's why me and my brother had such a shitty deal, was because of the fact that she could have raised her own daughter and instead ended up raising 2 kids that weren't hers. And so me and my brother had to go through the hell of that. And it's just sad because I never did anything to her and could never figure out why she was the way she was to me. And all I ever wanted was love, and wanted it at least from my dad. She took that love from my dad away from me, I felt. My brother had more of a relationship with my dad, but I craved my dad's love and never really felt that I got it. And in the end,
she stole everything from our family, including her and me.
In the end, I ended up moving out at 15 because
In the end, when she was 15 years old, her first boyfriend that she got.
I couldn't stick around. I wanted to be a part of my family, but I didn't feel wanted there. At that time, my brother wasn't there. I was the only kid left there. And she seriously drove me out of that house to the point where I lived on my own since I was 15. And
then she got her first boyfriend.
My first boyfriend, which lasted 20 years, but I was a
23.
slut. I was a slut and a hoe in her eyes. But I was with one man for 20 years. But it just goes to show how sick she is in her own head. And
calling her a slut, and she's 15 years old, and she's you're a little slut, you little tramp, you spread your legs and you do this and you do that, you got all these guys picking up, you're just not. And this is what I heard her put, and I just wanted to stick up for her and beat the shit out of her. But like, fuck, I'm a kid.
That was actually the one time my dad did stick up for me. That was the one time.
Yeah, because he knows that she's a fucking slut.
Actually heard her say that and actually did stick up, and that was actually the best feeling for me, to know that he actually had my back. And that was probably the only time that he really stuck up for me. But
she had a hold over everybody, man.
And then I, at 17, became pregnant with my firstborn. And my dad was not there, was not present for that. And all of this has to do with his wife. Reasons why she pretty much took my dad's relationship away from me. And then, I have two kids now that are 20 and 15. And my dad had maybe seen them in their whole life, maybe 15, 20 times? Yeah, not very much. Not very much at all.
She kept him, she had this hold over him, and it's hard to explain. She did it with everything. Everything. He wasn't allowed to see anybody. He wasn't. As soon as their friends seen the real her, they didn't want nothing to do with her. So they were like, no, we don't want nothing to do with her. And then all of a sudden Linda would be like, oh, you can't be around this person, this person, this person. My dad was constantly walking on a thin red line of, a thin red line. Oh, a thin red line and fucking was always careful because he didn't want to hear her bitch.
He was always walking on
bitch.
eggshells, and it.
I was, she was.
It's
The
sad.
friends were, neighbors were.
It's sad that in the end, she took the person I love the most away from me. Like, I am the only one in my family to have graduated college. My own father wasn't there to see me get my diploma. That was actually very heartbreaking for me. But just the fact that she took the person I love the most away from me.
That was her objective.
And it just shows how sick she is. And, you know, no one ever realizes, you know, the impact on someone that goes through something like that. But it's pretty big. It's, you know.
She hit it well because she didn't react the way I reacted. And this is all I've done. I react like my dad. Do you remember the fights Dad and Linda would have?
Mm-hmm.
Constant, non-stop, fighting, drunken fighting. And my dad couldn't do anything right without her bitching and complaining and my dad reacting and fucking leaving out of the door. Fuck you, you fucking stupid bitch. You're a fuck her. Exactly me, man. And fuck, exactly. And she just continued being the same roachy fucking woman. Anyway, so let's talk about Dad's dying days.
So, Dad's dying days, actually, when I didn't really talk to my dad at the time he became sick. I actually was giving him tough love, and I have explained to him numerous times how I just want his love and have a relationship with him. And I know he wanted the same, but his wife is the one who came in the way of that. And so my brother had phoned me and had told me that my dad had cancer, and I was pissed at that moment. I didn't really care. I said, who cares, to myself. Even though deep down, I was upset. But you know what? I blew it off. And about a week later, I thought, I'm just going to give my dad a call. And the moment I heard his voice, I knew something was horribly wrong. He was very high-pitched in his voice, and it wasn't him. So I decided that, you know, I had been with my new boyfriend for already 2 years. 2 years I had been with my new boyfriend, and my dad didn't even meet him. Hadn't even met him. That's how much I saw my dad. And so I decided that it was a great time to bring my boyfriend to see my dad, and was actually really tough because, and this is one thing I won't ever forget, and actually tears me up so much, is that how much I love my dad is that just getting there, and he had his dentures in because he wanted to just look good for my boyfriend for the first impression, and he couldn't hold them in, and he was trying to talk, and I could just see my dad just trying to be strong, and they were just falling out. So it was just like, you know what, Dad, just take those fucking teeth out. And that was the first time that I knew that things just weren't good. And so the visit went great. It was Christmas time, and my dad's like, there's some presents here for you. And I was still upset with my dad, so I didn't, and I know he wanted me to open them in front of him, but I was so pissed off at him, and I ended up not opening them there in front of him, and I wish I did. I just put them in the car and took them home, but
he could actually move around still, and he went out and bought her these presents for the kids and stuff. And then he got so sick, he wanted to get me presents, okay? But he got too sick to give me presents, so he asked Linda. He gave her money and said, go get Joey something. And she fucking came home and she got me a bag of fucking candy from the dollar store. That's how much effort went behind the fucking thing. And my dad's look, he was in his chair, and I was sitting there, and he was like, oh, Linda. He was so excitement. He was like, give Joey his gift. And he was just so happy he had something for me. And it was a fucking bag of candy that was raunchy, gross candy from the dollar store. Anyway, go on. So you didn't open the presents.
So I didn't end up opening the presents there, but I could tell he was just really happy, but he was just not himself, and really just kind of out of it. And that's when I knew things weren't good. But I had hope. I had some serious hope. And The second visit that I went there with, I was going through a battle with my daughter who was in the hospital, and she had been there for a couple weeks, and so I was dealing with my dad's sickness, and I was dealing with my daughter's sickness, and I knew my dad's time was coming short, so I wanted to bring my daughter there. So we took her out of the hospital early, even though we shouldn't have, just to go to my dad's house. We get to my dad's house, and his wife, who has never had a relationship with my daughter
So fake.
and hated me, was our best friend. Our best friend. And she had gotten this new curler, and she was like, "Oh, I gotta do yours and Kyla's hair. Come sit down." And my eyes were just rolling, but, I just wanted to just see my dad happy, and I, sat down on the floor, and as I'm sitting on the floor, I'm just looking over at my dad in his chair, and I can just see that he knows it's so fake, just how can she pretend that we're all best friends and everything is normal when
After
years
31 years of shit.
have been shit. And to me, that's hurtful. That's mind tricks. That is manipulation. But the best feeling for me that day was just seeing the look on my dad's face, knowing that this woman was being fake. And she's just evil.
When my grandpa died, it was the same thing. She let my grandpa sit there and rot and fucking didn't answer, didn't do nothing for my grandpa, just lived in his house for free and stunk up his fucking house. And then when he died and all the people came for the funeral, she was like, oh yes. She was the same fake bitch, man.
When my grandpa died,
oh,
so
it was
years
disgusting.
And, years, and the sad part for me was at that funeral, she came up to me and hugged me and was like my best friend, and at that time I was
in front
so
of everybody else.
Gullible that I thought, wow, this is a new start. I was like, you know what, this is great. I had the best feeling inside, and I thought we're gonna be a family again. The next day, back to her, it was all a show.
It was a total show, and this is how it's been. Everyone. When I was in the hospital, the last time my dad was in the hospital on January 3rd, this is 6 days before he died. I go in there, and she's like, after neglecting him the whole entire time, neglecting him until she got what she wanted with the will, or with not leaving a will and leaving everything to her. She fucking neglected him, and then we get to the hospital, and she's all of a sudden, oh yes, that's what I do. I'm a caretaker, and I take care of people, and this is what I do for a living. And I'm like, yeah, fucking right. It was driving me crazy. I had 2 hours with my dad, and it was beautiful. And as soon as she walked in the room, she started fucking, fuck you, Joe, do this, you're doing this wrong, and this. You and your fucking shake, because I wanted to give my dad pure raspberry shake, and you and your fucking shake, stop giving your dad what's good for him, and I fucking lost it. And then we got the counselors at the fucking place.
My dad's last moments at the emergency, when they told us that he was gonna pass away any second, any minute. We were all, it was a lot for all of us to grasp, and, we're all crying. My brother sheds one tear, and she tells him to stop it. Like, who does that?
Anyway, what I was saying was, our whole entire life, every Sunday we would come for brunch with my grandpa. As soon as my sister walked in the house with the kids, Linda got up and stomp out of the room, go into her room, and just hide, stay away. Fucking every time my sister went over to my grandpa's house to see my grandpa or my dad, as soon as my sister's presence was known, she got up and she walked right out of the room. Now I'm at the hospital, and I'm like, look, I just want time with my dad. I want to be able to spend time with my dad without her. Can she fuck off? When I come to the house, she can fucking storm out of the room and go do what she's done for 35 fucking years. But no, now all of a sudden, even to the counselor at the Royal Jubilee Hospital, she's like, well, no, if the hockey game's on, I'm not going to do it. Meanwhile, she lived in her life in her room with her own TV and her own cable while she was totally separate from my dad. She didn't give my dad sex for fucking over 10 years, man. Fucking sick bitch fucking says to me one day, she's like, or says to my dad, oh fuck, aren't you happy? I just gave you a hand job. Like, fuck, you think you'd ever be satisfied? Like, a hand job after fucking 10 years of not putting, anyway, that's not what this is about. She's disgusting. Anyway, talk.
I'm just gonna stop this and start again.